Yeah, okay. Welcome to Church Jams Now, the podcast where three former youth group kids and current music nerds deep dive into Christian music from the 90s and 2000s. I, of course, am your co-host, Kylan Savage. With me, as always, is Mr. TJ Smith.
That's floating Tej on this episode.
Ooh, that's fun. And our beautiful producer, Josh Olson.
Hey guys, I can't think of a cool name right now, so
What do you mean? You already have a cool name. You're beautiful producer, Josh.
Oh, that's true. I'm not
Trademark.
floating Tej though.
I'm
Trademark, yes.
Yeah. I feel like there's a way to do Anathallo and Olson. Anathalloson.
Anathalson.
Anathalson.
Oh, guys. Okay. This is why we don't do part A's after we do
Trivia?
Big night.
other things. It was a big night. We had our first trivia night on our
So fun.
Patreon. So if it sounds like to our listeners like you're tuning in to people at the wind down of a party, hey, guess what? You're right.
You
And the
are.
way to not miss out on the next party is to join us over on patreon.com/churchjamsnow podcast.
Yeah,
It's
if
true,
it sounds
but
like we
listen.
had the most fun. It's because we did. And
We
you
did.
can have fun with us next time.
But
That's
also, what
very
Kylan and Josh don't know is they're about to have the time of their lives listening to the album we're covering this week.
Really?
It's going to blow your minds.
Is it really? Okay.
It is.
So, okay. Well, maybe we should get into that because I don't know what the heck we're talking about.
Yep. Would you like me to tell you a little bit more about it?
Yes. Okay. What album are we covering this week? What are we doing? What are we doing? I've spent all of my mental energy over the past week doing this trivia night, and then
Which was wonderful.
and
you
then
did a great job.
thank you, and then you surprised me by being like, "Hey, we're recording this other episode." Not really. I fully understand that you told me this like 3 weeks ago, and as an adult, I should have been prepared. But you know what? I
New
just
year, new bit.
exactly not my responsibility. You surprised me. I don't know what we're doing.
Well, the best part is for this party, you can just get to sit there and listen and hear me talk about some stuff and hear TJ talk about some stuff.
I'm so into that. Let's do
It's
it.
true.
Well, we are covering the band Anathallo and their record Floating World, which is one of TJ's wishlist records and
It's
one
true,
that he
y'all.
specifically picked for this year.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
one of your wish list
This
records.
is-
Yeah, bud. Yeah,
Oh
Like,
boy.
This is your
And it-
first one of the year that isn't ACB because you had some ACB ones on your list.
true.
but-
But I kind of love that it's like something that neither of y'all really know much about. That feels very on brand for me.
I
Like-
had never even heard of this until
Y'all
you were
probably
like,
never heard
"Let's
of Anathallo.
you hear these
like-
records, and I was like, I have no idea who this is.
Okay, so this is one of those bands that like I guarantee you I know probably like 5 songs from this record.
Okay.
But I think I always confused Anathallo with Deus Vale.
Oh,
That's fair.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
see that.
I think
I mean,
it was like
My
always
hot
the
take is gonna be that they're like way better than Deus Vale, but
Wow, okay. So
Yeah.
Deus Vale was kind of a local band for me.
they're great. No disrespect.
But I think the kind of like right cuz they're like oh my god, what was the other band? There was another band that was like this from Denton in the early 2000s. It wasn't Fox and the Bird, but there was this whole kind
Mid-Lake?
of like it wasn't Midlake.
Lydia, I don't know if they're from Denton. They were,
Maybe
like,
Lydia. Yeah,
similar.
there's this whole kind of like emo like chamber
indie.
pop
Yeah, exactly.
kind of thing.
Yep.
And I feel like Anathallo fit in like very perfectly within that.
They do.
But I'm very curious to find out how correct that was.
Yeah. I mean, I'll like the best shorthand I can give y'all is they basically Anathallo is like the Christian, the real words are failing me now, guys. But they're like the not that's the way to say it. They're the not Sufjan Stevens band, which probably explains quickly to y'all why
Right.
they're one of my wish list albums.
So how do they
Like
fit
when he was
in?
in Danielson and Neil. That's
Right.
this
Yeah,
band.
exactly. Yeah, it's
like,
that.
how do they fit in with like Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos? Because that was more my scene, and for some reason I kind of like equivocate those two bands a little bit. I don't know if
I think
that's
what I would say is Margot is more stomp clap, and Anathallo is more like, like actual like cerebral folk.
okay.
If that
So
makes sense.
here's my big question: is Anathallo May with cello?
That's a fair question. I'm gonna let you answer your own question by the
Okay,
end of our
okay.
episode.
All right, sweet.
I'm not gonna
Because-
answer that for you
because
because I
in-
like that question. I'm gonna let you answer it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Because in my brain, that's another sort of like connection point that I
That's
have.
great. I would say like vocally they're super similar, which is
Okay.
like really cool actually that you made that parallel like
Okay.
happen. But
Sweet.
yeah, man, they're a lot of fun and
Sweet. I'm so excited to talk about this record.
Josh, why don't you give us some actual context? Because I'm
I
just
would
like
love
throwing
to.
weird anecdotes at.
I would love to, but well, then we'll get to anecdotes because it sounds like you're going to be the only one that has anecdotes for this record, and I'm
It's
very excited to
possible.
hear about them.
Yep.
But Anathallo are originally from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Their career is from 2000 to 2010. Their
Mm.
name is derived from a Greek word meaning to renew, refresh, or bloom again.
Mhm.
They have many members of their band.
They do.
A lot of people.
Okay, I think this is where the Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos thing comes
a
in
lot
for
of
me.
people.
Totally.
Because it's more like a collective than a band almost.
Yeah. Oh wait, are you thinking of the Polyphonic Spree?
Yes.
Of course. Of course, Kylan. Yes.
Right. They're like the not Hare Krishna
Yep.
polyphonic spree.
Exactly. Exactly. Sorry, Josh.
Okay, who all is in this band?
Okay, for this record, we have Danny Bracken on guitar. Everyone out here has like vocals and percussion credits, so I'm just gonna skip those. But
Yeah,
Danny
yeah.
Bracken has guitar credits. Andrew Dost has flugelhorn and piano and vocal credits.
Flugelhorn. You don't hear that
Yeah.
a lot.
You don't hear
No,
that a lot, and that was
no.
his first one that I saw. So interesting.
Mhm.
I did not know this, but he is the third member of the band Fun.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah,
wow.
I was always
really?
like, who's the other third member? Because obviously, you know Jack and Nate,
Yeah,
but I
right.
didn't know. I couldn't remember who the third one was. But
And
apparently it's
this
this guy.
and this is a big part of why I wanted to cover this record in this band, y'all.
Okay.
Because he is underappreciated and like people need to be talking about him because I think
Okay.
he is like part of the reason that Fun is so fun.
Okay.
Well, and it's so
wow.
interesting. Like he's the only one that isn't in that we don't know about as much because like Nate, you knew about Format up to Fun, and then
Totally.
Fun happened, and then obviously Jack Antonoff is who he is now.
Right.
Yeah, just
But
exploded.
yeah, so he's the
Andrew
third.
was just hanging out. He was
Yeah.
like, I'm good.
committed to the art.
Yep.
You know, not trying to
it.
get big, committed to the art.
That's
I
it.
Yeah,
love
so
that.
that was crazy. I was like, oh, whoa, what a pull.
Yep.
Crazy. Band I never heard of. So, Matt Joint does vocals and guitar. Nathan Sandberg is on trombone, and Joel Thiel is on drums. Seth Walker is on bass, and Brett Wallen is on trombone. I
Wait,
believe
there's
that's
two
trombone
trombones?
credits.
Yeah.
Maybe they're yeah. So
Oh boy. Okay.
that's at least according to Wikipedia. The scans of the record did not have credits for it just had the names. It didn't have like specific instruments. So this is
Yeah.
according
Okay.
to Wikipedia. So Floating World, the record we're covering, is the English translation of the Japanese concept of ukuyo.
This
I
is
don't know how to
such
say
a
that.
TJ record.
Yeah, it's no
This is
looking into it. Even just
everything
the
you're
I looked at
saying.
the artwork and the track list. I was like, this is the most TJ.
This is the
I'm owning
TJ
it.
origin story right here. Is this record?
It
It is so good.
It was released February 25th of 2006, which makes it 17 years old. It is their third album in their discography. It is under the label Artist Friendship, which I'm guessing is like their own label, but it did look like they were on or distributed by Network, which is like Old Crow Medicine Show, Passenger, a bunch of other big bands. Producer, this was another really fun thing that I liked. Producer, it says it was recorded at home by Glenn Hills and Anathallo. And Glenn Hills is listed as an additional musician, and I couldn't really find any other production credits that he has on Discogs.
Mm.
But TJ, did you know drums and electric guitars were recorded at Glow in the Dark Studios by Matt freaking Goldman.
No.
Yes.
I
And
didn't
he
know
mixed
that.
the record too.
But it makes so much sense because it sounds so good.
Matt Goldman.
And,
guys.
like,
Isn't it fun?
I love
like,
that he's on
like,
it. That's so
like
great.
finding
I
all
didn't
of
know that.
all of these like connection points from these
Yes.
records that we loved back in the day. Of
Mhm.
like it all ties back to Matt Goldman. This is like
Oh, yeah.
it might as well be called Goldman Jams now.
7 Degrees of Matt Goldman.
It's so true. He's the best.
No, that's so good.
And that really wraps up the rest of my research because they don't have any charts to report on. So, and then all songwriting credits I think are just shared within the band. So that is all my research, and really that's all I have to say about this record.
All right. Yeah, I mean, me too. I don't know this record. Like I feel like I very like tangentially am
Mm.
aware of this record, but I don't know this record.
To quote
I
a
did
great
see
Jedi
someone-
master,
I was like,
you will. Oh shit! No, I fucked that quote. He
he
says you will be. That doesn't work there.
I did see someone on Twitter recently tweet about this record and like especially the CD packaging, which I assume
Really?
you want to talk about
Yeah.
TJ. But yeah, I did see someone recently like, we're about to cover that. Like crazy. How random.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the physical album packaging is really cool because it's like layers. There's like the outside paper which has like a cutout shape, and then there's the background insert that has a bunch of colors on it. It's hard to describe. Listeners, just
Right.
go like Google
Look
it.
at some
check it
pictures.
out. Yeah, it's very cool.
Sweet. Okay, so TJ, what else do you have to say about this band?
Dude, okay, so you know those bands that like you don't really necessarily know a ton about them. Like Josh, basically you just told me a lot about this band that I didn't know. But you know those bands that you just kind of fall in love with their sort of ethos or their vibe and the experience that you had with them maybe at a concert or even just listening to an album, and you don't really
Right.
kind of, I don't know if y'all have ever done this, but like you kind of intentionally don't really pursue the details because
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to keep it sort of mysterious. It's like the Jaws thing, like don't show me the Bruce shark,
Right.
like I want to like enjoy the mystery and like the esoteric nature that is this band. I needed it to stay sort of mysterious and fun. So they were a
Fun.
band that I discovered at Cornerstone in 2006.
Oh, cool.
It was my first time to Cornerstone, and I don't even remember why I checked them out, to be honest. But it was one of those like,
It wasn't the 2 trombones on stage.
no,
And
like,
Because that would
flugelhorn?
make me immediately go.
Don't forget about the
I gotta
flugelhorn.
see this.
Yeah, 2 trombones
Flugelhorn.
and a flugelhorn. That's my favorite DC track.
That's
or
our
DC dog
spin-off
track.
podcast. 2 trombones and a flugelhorn.
And 2 trombones and a flugelhorn.
About 3 people are gonna get
With
that.
just 2 trombones and a
And a
flugelhorn.
flugelhorn.
Praising the Lord.
That's so good.
In Bushnell,
great.
Illinois. Yeah, no, they were playing one of the folk tents around the same time as another band that I was going to see. And so I was like, I'll just go early and check out this band. It was something
Okay.
like that. And they they had like 7 members on stage or something, and like a whole brass section, like Josh explained. I think there was somebody that was like entirely dedicated to the xylophone for the whole set.
okay,
That sounds
And
I
right.
was just
feel
like,
like
this is
I feel
awesome.
like 2006 to 2010 was like the sweet spot for quote unquote chamber pop
Yeah, exactly.
of this like indie folk thing that like utilized kids that were in band.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So where there
Yes.
was like cello or horns or whatever,
Yeah.
like these weird parts of like kids that weren't normally in bands got to like be in bands.
in bands, yeah.
Yeah.
And they
shout
got
out
to,
to
like, make-
Jonathan Hugendorn, by the way.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Because
This goes out to Hoog for sure.
because as a cello player, I feel like he played in every hot hot, quote unquote, hot band.
Oh,
Ed-
everyone wanted him.
Ed DBU for like 3 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was a hot ticket item. Oh, you got Hoog in your band? Dang.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, so I don't know. They just kind of blew my mind because they were unabashedly like you said, like that kind of like folk chamber pop. And
Mhm.
I think like I remember like on our road trip up to Bushnell, I was listening to Illinois. Like, come on, feel the Illinois. Like I was like listening to that. I was going to Bushnell, Illinois, and then I found this band that was basically like not Sufjan, and I was just like, this is everything. These guys are great. And I don't want that to feel sort of referential or derivative, because they're their own thing, and y'all will see. I think like when you dig into this album, I think you'll see their unique qualities sonically, especially the vocals, and the arrangements are just like mind blowing. And to experience that for the first time live, and for it to really sound good. Like I remember the mix being very balanced for 7 or 8 people on stage. I was like, I didn't have words for that at the time. I was a junior in high school, but I was like, I can
Putting
hear
that sound guy through the ringer.
the horns.
He's like, I'm used to just metal bands, guys. Like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, or punk bands, like 3-piece outfits.
Yeah.
And here's an 8-piece, all kinds of orchestral instruments on stage. But it was just like kind of game changing for me. It was like a genre bending live experience for me. I don't think I'd ever seen something like that. And I was like just understanding polyphonic spree and like Sufjan and like chamber pop as a genre. Like I think I was still figuring out Vampire Weekend, and like what it meant. Arcade Fire, like these bands that are like out there with full orchestral arrangements that aren't the Beatles or the Beach Boys,
Right.
And so to have a band at this plucky, like Christian music festival in this tent where like there's not even a floor, we're just kicking up dust there in our jorts with our fullets, like, and then there's this happening in front of us. Like it was just it was a formative moment for me, for sure. And so that's why we're gonna float into the world of Anathallo.
Ooh,
very nice.
I
like
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I hope
do we
you'll
have
love it.
anything else to say about the band? Josh, do you have anything?
I want some flopper
literally-
bop predictions from y'all.
Literally nothing about the band.
That's what I want.
I'm like I said, if in my mind this is May with cello and flugelhorn, dude, I think it is a travesty that I have not connected with this band more. I think this is gonna be
agree.
like I have a pretty good feeling like this is 100% my vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to, like, regardless of how long this record is, this feels
54
like...
minutes and 28
Jesus.
seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an investment, to be sure.
This, to be fair, this feels like my kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm gonna bop this album.
Cool. I think there's enough
That's what
about
you're
it that
going
you
on?
will. So
All
I
right.
appreciate you
Yeah.
predicting that for yourself.
Yeah, it makes the most sense to me to bop this album.
I love that. I can't wait.
Yeah. What about you, Josh?
Nice. Okay. Well, I am not like the biggest Sufjan fan, and like all this like chamber pop and these kinds of bands, like I'm not really into that stuff. So like that kind of like makes me a little bit tentative. I was thinking I don't go in and flop a lot of records, so I thought it would be fun to predict a flop just to like
Yeah,
make, like
just
high
to switch
stakes
up-
kind of thing.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. So, but
I get
so I'm like,
that.
I don't know, but I looked at the artwork and like, you know how you can get vibes from the artwork and track listing, and like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, I'm getting good vibes from it, and it's Matt freaking Goldman, guys.
Right.
There you go, man.
Yeah. Okay.
anything.
So like to be fair, TJ, what you said earlier, I have a feeling that this will be like Deus Fail, but better.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Like,
if
I-
it is, I think I'll like it because I'm pretty hit or miss on Daysville.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh
mhm.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a discussion
Spoiler.
for another time.
Spoiler for when we do Daysville.
Ooh, okay.
Yep. So, yeah, I thought about just doing a flop just to like put some stakes in the
I
game
love
and
that.
stuff like that.
I love
like it.
that
But-
because
I appreciate it.
yeah,
I respect that.
yeah.
Plus,
Because
I just feel
actually,
like
you
it's-
think I will. I really don't know, but
Yeah.
I might just.
I feel like
put
it's
a
an
flop
authentic
in there
answer
just,
from you, and that's.
I
that's
love
what
you
we're here for.
committing to the flop prediction because I feel like of the three of us, like TJ is usually the one that will be brave enough to predict a flop, and you and I both,
scared.
Josh, I feel like we predict bops more often than not. So I'm excited for a flop prediction.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah, just to keep it fun. I
Yeah.
really have no idea where it'll land. I could see myself getting into this. I could also see myself not. So
Sweet.
on that 50-50, I'm like, let's just make it more fun and let's say a flop.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So, let's listen to some sweet
Well, wait.
advertisements. What,
TJ,
what?
it's obviously a bop.
Oh
right?
yeah. Well, sorry. I just assumed that since it was a TJ wish list, it was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be
You
a
wish
bop, but
a list an
The-
album that you can just flop so hard.
I mean, that would be a Sarah move, would it not?
it
be.
would be.
But no, yeah, this is a hard chamber pop, bop. So
Okay, chamber
That's-
pop bop.
yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's listen to some sweet advertisements, and when we come back, we will dive into
Floating
"Floating World" by
World.
Anathallo.
By Anathallo.
Hey, jammers! I always feel weird saying jammers. now.
Why?
It's the best
Because we don't do it consistently enough.
we only do it whenever it deserves to
Not
be
overused.
used.
That's true. All
We
right.
save it for
Hey,
special occasions.
jammers. Thanks for taking time out of your podcast listening experience to join us here in Adland, where we're going to talk about Collide Records.
CollideRecords.com, in fact, is the URL that you would want to go to experience everything that Collide Records has to offer, and it is amazing. What do they have?
They got all kinds of music that you would want: CDs, vinyl, music that we cover on the show, that a lot of artists that you'll hear here, and then also just other artists. Is not limited to that. So you can pick up something that you're hearing us talk about on the show, and then something else that just came out from a big time artist. They got anything that you want, really.
U2.
They got that new Songs of Surrender, that big old box set.
They got that
So, and
sweetness.
the cool thing is that they've got big releases, but they've also got some like pretty niche stuff in there that like is hard to find, especially if you're looking at CDs. I've picked up a few rare CDs from Collide, and it's pretty cool. So they got some good stuff on there to find, stuff that you can't really find in print anymore.
That's the coolest thing, for all of you haters out there saying that we sold out.
I'm glad you said that,
Is
Kylan.
that
Everyone's
90s
saying
movie?
that about us these days.
Listeners, he just waved his finger. He wagged his finger at us.
This is legitimately staying in the
Please,
for
it needs to.
sure. We love Collide Records, man, because the inventory that they have is just astounding for music nerds like ourselves. And for our listeners, if you find something that you really like on colliderecords.com, at checkout, if you type in Church Jams Now in the promo code section, you get 20% off
That's so good.
your first purchase. Yeah. You get 20% off your first purchase, which is
Amazing.
just
I think we
super
can
rad.
all confirm that it does work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We've all confirmed that it works, which is
Very
so
cool.
cool. Yeah. I love being able to partner with Collide Records. I'm going to say it one more time, and then we'll get back to the show. Visit colliderecords.com. And if you find something that you really love, when you're checking out in the promo code section, type in Church Jams Now for 20% off your first purchase.
Sweet savings. Do it now.
Oh, no.
That was good. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed those sweet ad messages. I know for a fact that we enjoyed recording them.
It's true.
So we're back. For us, it's a week later. We have listened to Floating World by Anathallo. TJ, this was your wish list record, right?
It was one of my wish lists. That's right.
Okay. Do we have any general thoughts about this record before we dive into it?
I have many thoughts, but none of them are general.
None of them. They're very specific.
Very
No, ask a question. I would love to. I'd
So
love to hear it.
okay, because of the way that my brain works, I don't remember. I predicted a bop for this, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You did.
And Josh, what did you predict?
I went flop
You predicted a flop.
to
And
create
TJ
some
obviously
tension.
was a bop. TJ, I want to know, like, now having like re-listened to the record,
Mm-hmm.
can I get your flop or bop predictions for Josh and I?
Oh, that's good.
I'm curious, like
Mm.
having like recently re-listened to this record and doing what episode?
And knowing how we think
what
about
volume is
records.
this, Josh? Is this
Volume
40
46.
46. Doing 46 of these. How you feel Josh and I will fall on
To see
the,
if I've
I like
gained enough
this.
context
on the
for
flop or
y'all's-
bop spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think you're both gonna flop it after the re-listen.
Oh,
Really?
brutal.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to say too
do you
much
wanna
about
explain
why.
it? Yeah, that's what I was curious. Do you want to explain
Because
it,
I
or do
think-
we want to like get into it?
I think we should just get into it, and I'm curious to see if the reason, if I'm right, and then if the reasoning that I have in my head is what y'all share.
Okay.
So this will be interesting.
Yeah. I'm
That's a good question. That's fun.
That was
Yeah.
fun, yeah.
I'm excited to talk about it. I will say the biggest thing for me is I'm, as the guy that typically kind of like moves the show forward
Mhm.
and gives the track names, I'm pretty upset that I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah, you should be.
And there's a hell of a lot of Japanese
Yeah, we're
in
gonna
these
butcher
song titles.
a
Yeah.
lot of this.
So I just want to get that out front, like right away. I do not speak Japanese. I fully understand I'm going to butcher these song titles.
But you're the only one here who has been to Japan. So it's really on you, is what I'm saying.
it
I've
is.
flown
It is.
through
I
Japan,
take
but that doesn't count.
I take full responsibility. I'm
As you
going to
should.
try my hardest because some of the song titles, they do say like as lyrics within the song. So I'm going to try, but I fully apologize for any of our Japanese speaking listeners if
Yep.
I mess up song titles.
Or
Our bad.
any of our Japanese spouses,
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
mine specifically.
Okay, so we ready to just dive right in?
Let's
go.
do it.
See, I'm already so stressed out because I don't know how to say this first. Is it Ame? Is it AIM? Is it Ame? Is
I
it?
think it's
is
Ame.
it- Okay, we're going with
Could be
Ame.
wrong.
All right, I'm deferring to you, TJ.
That's probably a mistake.
Fairly or unfairly.
but- Let's do it.
2006's "Floating World" by Anathallo. This is track number 1, Ame.
Man, what if I just said this is my favorite song on the record?
It's all downhill from here.
No, what if I
That'd
was
be
like
crazy.
legitimately moved by this?
You're like, this is amazing.
song of the sticks clicking together.
I wrote
Mhm.
fun
That
clicky
they're like-
sounds.
Yeah, they're like, let's record this.
I kind of get it
I'm
Understanding-
for it. It's fine.
on a conceptual level, like the whole vibe of the album. This makes a lot of sense as an
Right,
intro
like
track.
it made more sense to me once I got through the whole record.
Yeah,
First listen through, it stressed me out, man.
I can't remember if we talked about that. This album is based on a lot of Japanese folklore and fairy tales.
No, I don't. Think
I don't know if
We
brought
did
that
not, but I knew that because I did research. Because my first listen through of this
way to
album,
go.
I was like, "What the hell is this?" So I did some research. Yeah,
You're
and
like,
there
this
is
has to be something.
like there is some
Right.
like really cool stuff. All the Japanese folklore references and stuff.
So when you know that, it kind of contextualizes like this weird atmospheric, organic, stick clicky.
Yeah,
It feels like walking through a forest or like a wooden house or something
right.
that's kind of like a little fantastic, like a scene that's very ethereal and like strange. So that's
Mhm.
I think that's them setting the tone.
No, it's a good
Um,
mood setter.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And I do like that it's only like 53 seconds. Like it's
Right.
not like a minute and a half. If
Right,
it was a minute and
right.
a half, I'd be like, guys, this is too much. But 53 seconds, sure.
Yeah,
go
if
for
it's
it.
under a minute, I'm fine with these kinds of intro tracks.
Right.
Like, and it transitions perfectly into
Super well.
the next song.
How do we say that one, Kylan?
Okay, we ready? We ready to move on to track 2?
Let's do it.
I'm ready to
Okay,
hear
track
you
number
move
2, Genesaret?
Is it Gennesaret?
Gennesaret? I don't know, dude. I'm
That'd be
so
my
stressed
guess.
out.
I've always thought of it
Gennesaret?
with the hard G, but who knows?
Gennesaret?
Yeah.
Parentheses, going out over 30,000 fathoms of water.
It's true.
We looked hard, I stood on the bottom, careless tiptoes, splintering wood, waterlogging, break up, come back together.
Yeah, it's a great transition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
really
sure.
beautiful. And fun fact, Gennesaret is another term for the Sea of Galilee.
Yes,
Oh,
it
cool.
is.
I did not know that. Can I tell you my first note?
Sure.
So based on our part A, we talked a little bit about the the Sufjan Stevens references.
Yes.
Then this song came on and I was like, oh, I didn't expect it to be this
Yeah.
much Sufjan Stevens.
Yeah. I think it was like a little subgenre for like a hot
It was.
second,
It totally was. Yeah.
you know? And
It was.
these guys were part of it. But it is very specific, and that's
Yeah.
something I'll bring up a lot as we go through this album is like, I mean, it's obviously very niche, like it's this Japanese folklore concept album, but
Like Pinkerton. No, just
yeah,
kidding.
like just like Pinkerton. You nailed it, Josh. But I think of like Van Gogh and like his like sunflowers painting or like the Starry Night or something. And it's like the whole album is basically one painting and each song is like a chunk of the painting. So you
like
either
that.
like the shades that he uses when he paints the Starry Night or the sunflowers,
Right.
like you either really like dark blue or, goldenrod yellow, or you don't.
Right.
So that's
good.
the way
That's
I'm
good.
gonna like
Yeah, yeah.
sort of set up this album for listeners and as we talk about it. Obviously, I'm here
Yeah.
for it. It was my wish list.
No, for sure.
So-
For sure. And okay, so
But it is in that Sufi kind of genre.
It is.
So
Well,
very.
so I feel like the lead singer has two kind of like vocal modes. He's got the like really like Sufjan sort of plaintive, like it's almost like head voice. It's like kind of
Mhm.
nasally. And then he's got his like angsty, like Midwest emo.
Yeah, almost like
Thing?
Lydia kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kind of vacillates between the two. And obviously
Yep.
I have a preference of one over the other.
Sure.
But
It's
I-
not the emo one, obviously.
no.
Yeah. You don't like emo at all.
Not at all. I loved the backup vocals on this, like the harmonies, the choral sounds.
Yeah, great textures.
I did write after this though. Oh boy, there's gonna be a lot of glockenspiel on this record, isn't there?
Yeah. A lot of
In
bells.
my opinion, potentially maybe overused glockenspiel. I'm not the biggest glockenspiel fan. And how many times can I say glockenspiel?
But are you a glockenspiel and flugelhorn combo fan? Is what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
How
well,
many times do you get those two together?
That is very true. I do like to say glockenspiel and flugelhorn.
Those are both
Potentially more than I like to listen to glockenspiel and flugelhorn.
Sure.
Dude, their shaker game is on point. I will say that. Throughout this whole record, their shaker game is on point.
And I think just the musicianship across the board, like whether or not you like the parts or you like the choices, the compositional choices,
For sure.
the performances, I would guess y'all would have respect for if you could just like isolate the
For
parts
sure.
and be like,
Yeah.
is this a well performed part of Glockenspiel?
Yeah, I have
Arpeggio?
I have a more kind of generalized note about that I want to get into later. But the musicianship on this record is insane.
Oh yeah, so all
It's
sounds
like
and plays
really,
great.
really, really good.
Right.
I did, TJ, in honor of your wish list record,
Oh,
I decided to institute a rating system
awesome.
Oh wow.
for songs on this
CJN
record.
first.
So
Cool.
it started out being inspired by your thumb system.
Okay. I like it.
Oh.
And we'll
Then what
see.
happened?
We'll see as we move on. I'm not going to tell you guys, but I will say
okay.
that this song got 1 thumb.
Okay. One thumb.
We don't know out of how many. Or is
No,
that
you're gonna divulge that to us
We'll get
in
there.
time?
We will
Okay.
get
Okay.
there.
All right. Cool. So we have no context. But there's
No
one.
context. It's
No
like
context?
just yeah. No.
Just the
It's all
thumb.
made up.
Cool.
Yeah, this was like it was very Sufjan Stevens.
Mhm.
Which is interesting because so I actually did like after listening to this record, I did like more research than I typically do.
Mm.
I watched they have on YouTube, they have a whole like hour-long concert video of them doing this album in Japan
Cool.
that I watched.
I didn't know that.
I read reviews from Pitchfork. I read reviews from a local Michigan paper. I did a bunch of research. I started doing deep dives on these like Japanese folktales and stuff.
Right.
Because I wanted to get more kind of context
Right. Kind of
going
get in
in.
their heads and
And I think
understand.
that's cool that like listening to the album like led you into all of that,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And across the board, they have a lot of like, oh, this is kind of like Diet Sufjan Stevens, which I feel like is honestly a little bit of a reduction of what they're trying to do. But I will say, with that being said, I think opening the record with this being the kind of like first track that you really get a sense of like what the band is, because the first track is just intro.
Mhm.
I get that comparison. Like
Yeah,
more
for
on
sure.
this track than anything else, specifically his vocal performance and
Oh,
the
yeah.
sort of like movements that they do.
And all the orchestral arrangements.
But I feel like I haven't listened to any of their previous stuff, but I mean they have stuff that predates this. So they're like they were coming out with their stuff probably right around the same time Sufjan was. So it's
Right.
not like they just heard Sufjan and were like, "Oh, let's make that a
No.
band." Like they
No,
were
I don't think they were
probably
derivative.
Yeah. So I don't see, like it seems that way to us because I'm more familiar with Sufjan. So
Right,
I'm like,
yeah.
wow, you're going very Sufjan here, but I'm like, you guys were probably just doing the very similar thing
Right.
around the same time as each other.
Which
Mhm.
I guess I think that's kind of the point that I'm making, because I don't feel exactly that way throughout the rest of the record, but this song in particular, as like the first like real song that you hear on the record, it does just like I can't help but make those comparisons. You know what I mean? And I feel
Yep.
like that's honestly a little bit of a bummer for them as a band. Like, because
Mhm.
I don't want to, but that's like my sort of like cultural experience and touchstone of hearing this kind of music. You know what I mean?
For sure. And it's different for me because I was like kind of getting like I had been enjoying Sufjan for a couple years, and then I found this band and I was like, oh, there's other people doing this kind of music, even though I wouldn't have even been able to think of the words chamber pop or chamber folk or any of that.
Right.
But I understood that it was in the same like atmosphere of music, but I could, because I was listening to them at the same time, I could sort of suss out the differences, I think, for me as a listener, that really did create a distinguishing sound for Anathallo and a distinguishing sound for Sufjan. You know, it wasn't so much referential as it was like parallel.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
but that was just entirely based on my listening experience, you know, and seeing them at Cornerstone and being like I had a very visceral, like visual, experiential understanding of who they were as a band, and it was very
Exactly.
specific.
Yeah.
And so that's going to inform anybody's like
exactly
experience with the band or relationship to it.
we've talked about that before, like and I was talking to my wife about that today, of like, TJ, you and I have talked about that. I hated Fleet Foxes until I saw on the Helplessness Blues tour, I saw Fleet Foxes live.
Right.
I get it. I get it. They're doing
Yeah.
these like harmonies, they're doing these things in real time, and it is a magical, beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought up Fleet Foxes because I think they also are very similar in a lot of ways. Anathallo, like especially this earlier stuff, feels like early Fleet Foxes, like the Sun EP. I don't know. This song especially I like because it doubles down on the whole like we're weird indie chamber folk and we know it, Like that's obviously this is a wish list for me. Like it worked for me. It landed because the surreal lyrics.
Yeah,
and all
my
the
my
different-
biggest takeaway from this whole record was like, this makes so much sense why TJ likes this record.
No,
And like,
my
I
first
feel
listen, I was like, this is the most TJ record.
yeah, I feel like I understand it. Like, kind of the way with like on our Patreon, like when we did Secular Jams now with like Orange Rhyming Dictionary.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I understand you as a musician better
Mm-hmm.
for having listened to this record now.
Totally. Completely. Yeah. And we felt very much that way
Yeah.
on the Patreon episode. For anybody that
Yeah.
hasn't checked that out yet, do it. It's a good one.
That's so good. Do you know what my next note on this song is going to be? And what my note for most of these songs is going to be?
Too
It
long.
has to do. Yes. It's too long.
I don't know
baby.
how you guessed that, TJ. How did I do
You
that?
know me so
Wow.
well. And I love that. I love that you know me.
We both
that
learned about
well.
each other. Kylan
Yeah.
learned about you so much through this record, and you know Kylan so much.
Right. Like as
too
I
long
listened
for
to
him.
it the first time when I was doing notes for this album, I was like, oh man, I'm really loving this part. We're only like a minute in, right? And then I look down and it's like 4 minutes in and I'm like, oh no. Kylan skipped this one already. I know it. He's done.
To be
He's
fair,
finished.
I did not skip any song on this record. I listened
Nice.
to it all the way through.
Good job, bud. Thank you. I appreciate
Speaking
that.
of skips, I want to say I like the lyric. I want to skip like a stone from a stronger arm.
It's great, right?
It's
It's
very
good. I like that a lot.
Yeah. The metaphor is strong.
It
Mhm.
is. It
All
is.
right, guys, we're doing our typical thing where we talk about the first song for 20 minutes.
I want to just
Of
say,
course.
because I haven't said much here, that for this is a linear song structure, and for
Mhm.
the entire record is all linear song structures. There aren't any repeated choruses, any like this is obviously the A section, like this is obviously a first verse, this is obviously a second verse, like so that
Yeah.
is something that we'll go back to.
Yeah, I'm glad you
but
brought
yeah,
that
that
up.
just introduces that
Yeah,
to the record.
I'm going to
Right.
talk about that repeatedly.
I will
later. I don't particularly connect with songs that just have like movements as opposed to like
First chorus.
pop song structure. But
Right.
there are parts that I really enjoy. So let's move on to track number 3. Hey, I can say this one. Hoodwink.
Someday they will build monuments for us. People like me walk out the door before you out into the streets of countries.
The way of like them having the intro track and then that long chill second track, like when the full band finally does come in, you're like, oh yeah, I've been waiting 6 minutes for this to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's a very like relieving sense. You're like, yeah, cool.
Yep. It finally hits. And you feel
Yeah.
like it's a rock record, like to a degree for a moment.
Right. This is the
Yeah.
first
Oh, cool.
time the kind of like indie rock part came in.
Comes through. Yeah, exactly.
And I love this intro part. If it was just this intro part, this would be my favorite song on the record.
Oh, cool.
I love his voice. Once again, he's doing the kind of the more like emo thing on
Mhm.
this. And hey, this has some sweet, sweet bass, y'all.
Yeah, it does.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
it does. Even when the bass first comes in, even though they're playing like simple stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's like the perfect part there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not overplaying. They're just kind of like
Yeah.
filling it in with interesting flavor.
TJ, I want to know what you think about this song.
I really like it. When we got to track 3, I was like, oh yeah, this was one of my favorites. Like, I don't know if it's my favorite track, but it's definitely one that, like, when I think of Anathallo, I think of this song and one or two others on this album, and then a handful on Canopy Glow, their next album. Yeah, I like the kind of weird, eclectic, like kind of stomp clap percussion and like the shakers and like chains and things like that, like all the
Yeah.
weird aux perk stuff.
Yeah, so that was the coolest part about watching that Japanese live video is
Mhm.
they're all basically auxiliary percussionists.
Yes.
Like everyone that is they're playing guitar and auxiliary percussion. They're playing piano and auxiliary
The
percussion.
band hustles. They
yeah,
work hard.
the one guy that is just auxiliary percussion, it was so funny because we were watching it and my wife was like, everyone looks so intense except like the guy that's like playing shaker and floor tom is having the time of his life. And I was like, yeah, that's the best place to be in any band.
It's true.
The auxiliary percussion player, you just get to like live your best life.
Yeah,
and
you're
it's
just
a very
vibing.
specific personality type. And I was telling her like, so Joe was my like auxiliary percussion guy. We gave him
Totally.
like a bass drum and a floor tom and a harmonica and a tambourine. And he just like went crazy on stage. And it's just like, it's like that guy's like living his best life.
Yeah, having the best time. That's true, man. And then you got like a flugelhorn solo.
Can I read one of my notes for this song?
Let's hear it.
It says, and I quote, "Sprawling, artistic records like this make me realize how basic I am." Like, I'm like,
Josh.
oh,
Josh
wow.
wants the like Bruce Springsteen like meat and potatoes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I want a Telecaster singing about the heartland in a verse chorus format.
Wait, you don't want a song where they quote the planner of the Nazi gas chamber
I saw that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
and where they say all things bright and spiritual
No, I do really like as a
in the same
linear
song.
song. Yes, in the same song. As a linear song, like all my notes are like I like these parts because that's all the songs are. There's just parts. So I
Right.
can't be like this chorus is so catchy.
Yes.
because there are no choruses.
No, it's just sections.
My favorite part though was the tremolo picking part at 340. Which I
Yeah.
really love the part. It reminds me of like the new Holy Fawn record that came out last year.
Oh,
Like they have
yeah.
some moments like that, so I was
Mm.
really digging it. But then they like switched it up and went to that beat at 4 minutes. So it's like they had 20 seconds of that really cool part, and then they kind of like switched it up, and I was like, I was ready for y'all just to like groove.
You wanted more.
in that for a while.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, we did this part. Now we're going to this part. Now we're going to this movement.
Okay,
this section kind of thing.
that's my big note on like the whole record. Like the sort of disconnect that it had for me was like there are all of these like individually like super cool parts,
Hmm.
but for me personally, the way that I connect to music and it was something that I hadn't really articulated until listening to this record is that I more connect to like a groove. And I
Mm.
never felt like I got to groove on this record. I feel like there were all these parts, and then every time I start to like dig a part and I'm like, okay, I'm really feeling this, they change it up into something like entirely different.
Hmm.
And it's more of a mental exercise than I am typically prepared to go through when I listen to music.
Yeah.
And-
That's
and-
that's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well. So I was thinking about this, and I feel like this is honestly the way TJ, you and I experience art differently. And what I love about our friendship is I feel like it goes back to like if we want to be as reductive as possible, the like vibe guy versus like professor philosopher. You know what I mean? Like.
Mhm.
Like because I feel like you enjoy that challenge and you enjoy meeting music on that level.
Mhm.
And well, I feel like we've talked about this before. Like I don't typically go to music for that experience. I will go to
Right.
other forms of art for
Film
that
or
experience.
TV,
Like
maybe. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go to like I'll watch like some weird obscure Japanese art film from the 70s or like I'll read like a novel that's like really hard for me to get through but then has like a payoff for me at the end. But for some reason music I've never been able to like make that bridge
Right.
of being able to experience music in that way. And so like this was another moment on this record where it really
That
started to
confirm that.
like click for me of like this is not what I go to music for.
Mhm.
I go more for vibe, and
Right.
and for groove. So for me, like a big part of this was like not that this was inauthentic. It was far from inauthentic, but it felt so like cerebral and heady for me
Mm.
that it was hard for me to like make a connection. I felt like I could feel them counting time signatures in their head, counting the measures and like reading the music rather than feeling the music. Does that make sense?
It does, and you could be right. They might be doing that.
But
Another
that's
component.
fine. That's fine. That like that's not a value judgment. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No,
Like
I
that's
don't take it that way.
okay.
Like I think it's like a way to explain why it's not landing as much with you, and it makes perfect sense. If you're thinking about them thinking about being really cerebral, how would you be able to like really access like that kind of music?
Right.
The interesting thing is not that you're wrong about me being, a philosophy nerd or like lyrically oriented when it comes to music, or kind of like enjoying the mental gymnastics of enjoying like a certain musical idea back to back with another one, back to back with another one, or like a rhythmic tempos against other rhythmic tempos. It's not that I don't appreciate all of that, but what's interesting, and I think you're helping me realize that in real time right now. I think I also, though, those types of projects and albums and songs and bands are an opportunity for me to let go of all of that sometimes and lean into the surreal and experience that really heady music in a way that doesn't try to analyze it at all. That doesn't try to hook into like, what's the count here? Is this 7/8? Is this
Right.
4 bars of 7/8? I'm not thinking at all. I'm not thinking one bit. In fact, I'm experiencing, I'm feeling, and it does have to do with the fact that the music is very complicated. And I think that's what helps me experience awe and like wonder. But it's so much more. And this is a great example. This band, this album is a great example of an experience that's a journey, kind of like y'all are talking about the linear song structure, the bizarre nature of the music, the surreal lyricism. Like it's more about letting it take you on a trip, on a journey, on a voyage. Like it's not so much about, oh, they did that really clever thing where they had a triple meaning on that lyric halfway through the song and then they brought it back later. I'm not even thinking about all of that. I'm really just letting it wash over me.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
But because it's all this weird stuff with like glockenspiel and flugelhorn and crazy like yelling background vocals, like stomp clap stuff, like it's enough to keep that awe refreshed and refueled every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I have like a propensity for awe and wonder that's maybe a little ADD.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Does that make
think
sense?
specifically,
sure.
like with this record, and probably like some of the music that you relate to with this, like what's different about this, especially once we get into like the lyrics and like some of the other stuff about it later on this record, is that it's not like you don't hear it and you're like, oh, I relate to this, and like because a lot of times like music, you're like, oh
Right.
yeah, you make it about you essentially,
Right.
but like in this, you're like, oh, I'm gonna learn about this, like especially because you're like, this is a lot of Japanese in here, and you're like, I'm gonna learn about Japanese culture, and, like,
Right.
people, like it kind of takes you to that place where you're thinking about other people and learning other stories,
Mhm.
and then in turn, obviously, like from the morals of the stories, you do then reflect that upon your life, but it's not the immediate reaction of like, oh, how do I make this music about me?
Right.
It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah,
do that. It
that's
doesn't allow you to do that.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like branching out a little bit, and the
Yeah.
process of branching out and going somewhere weird
Yeah.
is what inspires and like gives me awe and like helps me kind of
Right. Yeah. And this goes back to like I don't typically seek that out within music. Like I seek out music more as a comfort.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's comfort food.
I'll seek out these types of themes and things within other art forms. And yeah, I just find that so fascinating. It's just like so cool. I don't know, man. I'm just like, I don't know. I love when we get into these kinds of conversations where we're
Yeah.
like we're all like a little exhausted. But we're all letting like a little bit more of like we kind of let those walls down a little bit and can get a little deep. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think
So
it's really fascinating.
So Josh, where do you fall then? at this point in time. Like
It's no
Kylan's-
Nebraska.
No, I don't even mean in specific relation to Anathallo
Electric
or this album,
Nebraska.
but like as we talk about and kind of like what you sort of go to music for, what is the experience that you're sort of looking for with music? Like Kylan described, like comfort and groove and vibe, and like I'm talking about awe and like things that challenge me and are kind of taking me to weird places. Like how would you describe your pursuit of music or what you look for in like going to music?
That's a great question.
That is a great
I
question.
would probably land more, and I don't have a great answer for it right now at this time. I would probably land more in line with Kylan and where he is, where it's like, and I think a lot of it for me is like, I'm looking to, and like I've noticed over the years that as I stopped like trying to write heavy music and stuff like that, I stopped listening to a lot of heavy music and stuff. So I think like I listen to music as like, what are things that will inspire me that I can use for my own musical pursuits, or that I'll like try to take into other things that I'm
Right.
doing, or like how can they inspire me? And that's why there's like certain genres that I'm like, I don't have anything against them, but I'm not into country because I'm not trying to write country music kind of stuff. Like I don't go out my way to listen to stuff like that right now. So that's my short, very uninspiring and ungrandiose answer.
You're so
right
basic.
now.
But it is
so
inspiring because
basic.
it's all about
It's so
inspiration.
basic.
It's about
Yeah.
what you can
Yeah.
relate to and what you can be inspired by. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah,
Which is cool.
something like that.
That makes sense. Art that fuels art.
Guys, we're only on track 3 on like
Art,
one of the
like,
longest
what?
records
Painting
that
by
we've
numbers?
covered. What?
It feels art like when you paint by
Oh,
numbers.
oh yeah, that's nice. All right,
Nice.
guys, let's move on to track. No, oh wait, I have to say, Hoodwink
Oh, yeah, your
got
rating
one
system.
and a half glockenspiels. So let's move on to track number 4, by number.
Wait, guys, are they a faux metal band? Like if there were
I wrote,
guitars,
ooh, I like these drums.
you know?
For sure.
Yeah, the
Because
drums are
then
cool.
I immediately wrote, ooh, I do not like these horns.
But if they were like chuggy metal guitar stabs instead of horns, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's an ambitious leap.
It is.
An ambitious, cacophonous leap.
Yes. Ooh, cacophonously. Everyone take a drink. Josh used an SAT word.
Josh did. Nice.
I did.
Yeah, that means you take 2 drinks. I
Cool.
like the weird sort of like circusy kind of feel to this.
Oh, I wrote circusy too.
Circusy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that
This has a
6/8.
real like Hush sound kind of did this too. That real like circusy kind of thing. And yeah, some of these grooves are so good. There's a guitar line at 2:15 that's like so good. It's very like the song goes into very like Midwest emo, like Appleseed Cast kind
Yes.
of like Sunny Day Real Estate kind of thing.
Yeah, and I thought this song would have some sections that you would appreciate, Kylan, exactly.
Yeah,
the way
there
that you
were
just
lots
described.
of
That was
those, man.
Cool.
Like I said, I enjoy all
Specifically
of
2
these
minutes.
all of these things in part. I think my
Right.
big problem is all of it as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
See, and this brings up something I wrote on this song, which was it's like Decemberists trying to do metal, and I wonder what you would say, Kylan, because this album has a lot of moments that feel like a Decemberist concept album. It feels
Very
like
Decemberist.
the
I
Crane
wrote that. I
Wife,
wrote
it
that
feels like
multiple times. But it's like Decemberists that were into Japanese folklore instead of like Shakespeare.
right.
You know, it's like
Well, the
it's
Crane
like-
Wife is a
like-
Japanese fairy tale too,
Right. But
but by and large, their work is more Eurocentric.
it's very Eurocentric.
Yeah.
It's more like taking Eastern influences into these like Decemberists Eurocentric styles. Yeah.
So do you think that might be part of what makes December's land for you when it does their work, where this one is a struggle? It's like the cultural difference?
No,
or-
it's not. I don't want to make it like a cultural thing. I think for me, going back to like what I look to for music, the reason the Decemberists sort of resonate with me more is they tend to use more of a pop
verse,
song
chorus,
structure.
Sure. Yep.
It's those like repeating things. And
Yep.
Anathallo doesn't they don't repeat anything. And they have like
Yeah.
really cool ideas that I
Right.
wish they would like build
Go
upon.
back to. Yeah.
But it just seems like this album is like bursting with like every cool idea
Right.
that they have, which is
Yep.
cool to a certain extent, but it's like I wish you would maybe like find some of those ideas and maybe like repeat them. It might connect a little bit more for me.
Right. And probably for a lot of listeners.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It would make it more relatable on a listening level.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
I gave this 1 flugelhorn.
Nice. I will say I am not into the minor circusy sound.
You don't like circus music?
I don't like circus music, and I think I don't like circus stuff in general.
That makes sense to
like,
me.
Like I know that like
You don't strike
especially
me as like a circus guy.
early Bruce Springsteen, like he has a lot of fascination with circuses, and I'm like absolutely like I do not want to hear any song that you're like Bruce is like, oh, he has that one song on Wild the Innocent, whatever, about Crazy Billy's circus show. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to hear is a song about a circus, Bruce. like I do not want to hear about that. So
Move along.
I don't know if I have some circus PTSD trauma, whatever. But yeah, as someone who is like really into like spooky Halloween sounding music, I'm not into the minory circusy chamber folk pop when they do that stuff.
Gotcha.
I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I'm not into this.
it's like it's similar enough that like you feel like you should, but it's like
yeah.
I
It's
love
not like I want all my music to be really nice and majory and pretty. All the time.
right, but it's like I love horror movies. I love slasher movies. I don't love most like supernatural horror movies.
Mm.
You know what I
Right.
mean? From an outside view, it's like, well, you like horror movies, right? It's like, no, there's all these like little striations of types of horror movies, and I like this little thing. Don't love that. I get exactly what you're saying, Josh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This song is really interesting to me because it does all that weird stuff, but it's definitely not my favorite. I like that they took a big swing on it with all these weird ideas, and obviously the linear thing doesn't bother me. I do have moments where I hear a really great hook or riff or whatever, and I'm like, oh, they should go back to that. But by the time we move on to the next section, I'm so enamored with it and
You're
really
you're
hooked
into the
in.
next section that you're like, that's
I'm like, it's fine. Yeah, I just kind of go on
Yeah.
the journey. But my
Cool.
favorite thing on this song was at the end where they do like the gang vocal kind of yell talk.
I do like
singing.
that part a lot. Yeah.
Anathallo mea cara. Like, it's just so fun. Like, I never knew
Yeah.
what they were saying. I still don't know. I haven't looked up the translation. I don't want to because I kind of like the ambiguity of like
Not
another
knowing.
language. And they're just so joyful. It's like pure joy. And I don't need to know the translation. I kind of just embrace the unknown on it.
Oh yeah. Nope. That's exactly what I said. The Japanese sing along at the end is fun.
Yeah. It's a blast. It's
It
just
is.
like a good time.
It is a great time.
Pure joy.
And there was I like the moment at 2 minutes as well, where like the guitar part kind of where Kylan was saying that like Midwest
Yes.
emo kind of guitar part. So like
Cool spot.
there were moments that I did enjoy in this song, like parts, but for the
Right.
most part, there was a lot of that minory weird circusy stuff.
Yeah.
Josh got creeped out.
Yeah, Josh doesn't like circuses. All right, guys, let's move on to track number 5, Dokoise, house, parentheses with face covered.
I like that. I always called it Duckwa's house.
Well, he
I'm
says
sure that's not right at
he
all.
says well that's your French coming through.
I know it is.
Because he says the word in the song, which
Right.
is what made me think.
The lyrics don't start until 1 minute 45 seconds. You'll have to scrub a while to find where he says it.
Yeah.
I do love the xylophone at this point because it's like rain trickling down. Like it's like rain falling on a warm day, and it's like very bright outside, and the bells are like the splashes of raindrops kind of like refracting sunlight, and like I don't know, it's just I have a really pretty visual in my head every time I hear that bell part. I really like it.
I get it. It's super cool. So this was what they opened their Japanese show with. That
It's
I
a
watched
great opener.
online.
Oh, so they played the
is.
record, but they didn't play it in the
No,
album
no.
order?
I think it was just like a regular show, but they
Interesting.
played most of
Oh,
these
okay.
songs.
Hmm.
Everyone seems super into it. I love the drums. I love the claps. I love the shaker. I cannot, for the life of me, get past the like 7/4 time signature of the whole song. Because it goes back once again to like vibe and groove. The whole song is like one measure of 4/4, one measure of 3/4. So that ends up being 7/4, right?
7/8, yeah.
7/8. And it just puts me on edge. And it's like, I want to like jam out. I want to clap. I want to dance. I want to like.
So your mind can't
Shake a
hook into the
tambourine.
7 and groove in the 7?
No, it cannot. It might.
Because that's what I do. Once I figure it out, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. It's 7. I'm locked in and I'm grooving in 7.
Yeah, I
not
can't do
even.
it. I can't
It's
do it.
bizarre.
I can't do it. It stresses
Okay.
me out too much. I like because this very easily could also be like my favorite song on the record, but
Right.
I
It's
cannot
very
get past
catchy.
the 7/8 of it all.
Interesting. This is one of my favorites on the record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Josh?
It's good.
like this
That's
one a
the
lot.
thing. It's really good. It's really up there for me. I don't know. I just like I can't click into it. I can never click into the 7/8 time signature. I just
think
want
it
there to
might
be
be-
that one extra measure. I just want it to like
Yeah.
I just
Go to
want it to
8.
resolve.
You feel shorted.
Yeah, I do.
get
But
that.
that's from like 30 plus years of listening to
4/4.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this
'Cause,
is
like-
my favorite song on the album.
Like this part is
Ooh,
so
nice.
cool. Like with the little like
Anna,
vocal part with the female vocal part.
Yeah. Really good vocal parts in this song. I mean, over the whole record, but
Yeah.
especially in this song. Then they got some like kind of borrowed chords that they
Yeah.
go on
Yeah.
to. There's
They
a
modulate
lot of
little.
that in this record. I was like, it happened so many times that I was like, it's not worth calling it out, but I do want to acknowledge that they do have some cool music theory stuff happening where
yeah.
they're throwing a spicy chord and you're like, oh, I didn't expect that. But
Yeah.
that was good.
Compositionally delightful, if a little exhausting.
Well, that was kind of my
admittedly.
big note is like not that it is inauthentic, but like me getting in my own head, thinking about them, thinking about time signatures, it feels like a bunch of like composing students at UNT making music. I just wanted.
Yeah, you sound like the
just wanted-
Pitchfork review of this record.
Hey, I read the Pitchfork review of this record and was going to bring it up later. That review was fucking rough.
It was mean. I think it was mean spirited,
Is
and
this
I
the
think
next
they were
song?
trying to be cool by trying to like
Oh no.
dig on Anathallo just because they sound the way they sound. I didn't think it was
Yeah.
very fair. Like
It-
it didn't seem very academic of them, whoever wrote it.
Right. It wasn't very objective. It felt super mean. Okay, so let's just get that out there now that it's been brought up. Yeah, I mean it said floating world is little more than a long list of insufferable pretensions that suggest some psychedelic aspirations. Well, I think the thing that pissed me off about the review was that the whole thing sort of hinged upon, oh, this music's like really pretentious. But then they also used like words and like vocabulary that was very like pretentious.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
Pot
like
calling
there
kettle
was
black.
exactly. Yeah, I felt like
Like-
pseudo-cerebral guy that's just mad because he doesn't get it, and he like wants to just, I don't know, point people toward Tame Impala instead. And like, I love Tame Impala, but it felt like a bro that got to write for Pitchfork and knew some SAT words, and he was like,
Yeah, I mean
I've heard too much Sufjan this year. I hate this album.
Right. So
Instead of meeting it on its own terms and trying
I
to
will
like
say, like,
critically
there was a
analyze
lot
it.
about, okay, much like the Anathallo record itself, there were parts that I really enjoyed, that I really connected with, but overall, it left me kind of like wanting, you know. But like saying the phrase Jeff Buckley balladic calisthenics,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on,
That's a normal thing people say all the time,
Yeah,
guys.
I heard Josh say that earlier.
I always say that.
like, but saying that phrase and then saying complexity for complexity's sake is lame.
Yep.
It's like, okay, fuck you, dude.
Yep.
Like,
Did you hear yourself a couple
yeah,
sentences
like
ago?
have a little bit of self-awareness.
Yeah,
This
and
needs
like
to be like a spin-off show where we like on Friday we just like tear apart a review that someone wrote online.
review
or something.
reviews. That sounds
Yeah,
fun, actually.
It does sound fun.
Yeah, but I agree. I think it was like just didn't have a lot of like fair critique in it. It didn't feel academic.
But to be fair, like some of the things that they said in the review, I was like, yes, I 100%
Sure.
agree with this. And then some of it was like, okay, like this is like a little too much for me.
Hey man, a broken pitchfork's right twice a day. So
Okay, I gave this song 1/2 of a bass drum on an amp stand.
nice. I like that. Feels
Yeah. I
very
gave it
personal.
One Ohana, Ohana. Man,
Yeah.
that's still stuck in my head.
Yeah, that's pretty
'Cause
good.
It's catchy.
But the
It's
glockenspiel
very
started
catchy.
to get on my nerves at this point.
Oh, you didn't like my raindrop analogy? That didn't change it for
No,
you?
no, that was
I
beautiful.
enjoyed it.
I loved
TJ.
it. I
Thanks.
loved
I
it.
enjoyed it.
I loved that more than I loved listening to glockenspiel for 6 goddamn minutes. Okay, let's
a lot
move
of
on to
bells.
track number 6.
Good luck.
Hanasaka Gigi? Oh my god, that's so bad.
I think that's it.
I think you nailed it. Before we do though, can I give a small Cliff Notes version of some context for the Hanasaka GG series?
Yes, I want to talk about the folktale because I love it. It's like the most Japanese thing ever.
It is. It's super Japanese.
I'm obsessed with it. Okay, Hanasaka Gigi 4, A Great Wind, More Ash is the name of the song. So let's get into the story that
Yes.
inspired
And
these
provide some
movements.
context.
Yeah, so it's what I can find is it was published in 1908, but I'm sure it dates long before that.
Mhm.
As far as the actual origin. But it's this great Japanese folk tale about an old couple that had a farm and a dog. And the super fast version is they had a cranky neighbor, and they were really sweet. They were really kind people. One day, the old man takes the dog out to his field, and the dog goes and digs up a part of the ground under a tree and finds a treasure, a bunch of riches, some gold coins. And the cranky neighbor sees all of this and thinks that he can profit from this. And so he asks to borrow the dog, borrows the dog, because he thinks he can do the same thing, right? The dog's like, I'm not going to do this for you, but whatever. And the guy's really mean to the dog. And so he kind of makes him, like forces him to dig. And he just digs in a random spot. And it turns out he finds like this gross pile of like refuse or like rotting.
Bones.
There's version that's
Yeah.
like rotting flesh
Yeah.
and bones. There's a bunch of different versions, but it's like gross stuff, right? So the guy
Not
gets really
treasure.
mad. Not treasure. Yeah, it's the opposite. It backfires. The guy gets really mad and kills the dog out of his anger. And then when the kind dog owner, we'll call him Hana, okay? Hana. So when Hana finds out, he's like, oh, well, can I at least, have the remains of my dog? And he takes the remains of the dog back, and he builds a mortar out of the remains of his dog that is used to make food. So then he makes these rice cakes out of this mortar. But it turns out there's a magic kind of element to this thing. Maybe the spirit of the dog is benevolently giving some blessing to the old couple, and the rice cakes are just infinite. They're just like popping off out of the mortar like constantly. So the neighbor sees this and he's like, hey, lend me the mortar, man, like let me borrow the mortar. He tries to do the same thing, and instead, I think, what does it do? It like something happens that's like horrible. I can't remember this part.
The neighbor tried to do it, and then it turned
Right.
into like putrefied berries.
Yeah. It was like just garbage.
Yeah.
And so he gets mad and he starts like burning it because he's just pissed. And he burns the whole thing down to ash. And the kind man goes back over to the house and he's like, "Hey man, where's my mortar? Like we're really missing those infinite rice cakes." And he's like, "Oh,
This is
I
all the
burned
most
that thing."
Japanese thing ever.
It is. And he's like, "Oh, I burned it, man." And he's like, "Well, can I just have the ash because it was really important to me because this was from the remains of my dog and da 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 da." And so he's like, "Fine." So he takes the ash, and then as he's walking,
This is my
back
favorite
to-
part, by the way.
It's so good.
This
Yeah,
is my favorite part.
when he's walking back to his house, and then he sees his trees, and they're like all withered up, and they're kind of dead and dying. And he spills some ash on the tree, and then they bloom to life. All of a sudden, they blossom, and they come back to full health. And it's amazing. And he's like, "This is incredible. Like, I don't understand." And word travels because people know that the garden in this man's yard just kind of burst to life out of death. And so the daimo, which is like an earl, sends a knight to the guy's house. And he's like, "Hey, the daimo's trees are sick and withered. He needs you to come use your magic and bring the trees back to life." So then he goes to the daimo's property and the daimo loves him and he brings his trees back to life and it's amazing and everybody, celebrates, and the daimo names
He
him
like showers him with gifts.
gold and like I think like sake or something, and then the daimo's like, "From here on out you're going to be known as Hanasaka Jiji," and it means like the man who made withered trees bloom or something like that.
Mhm.
And so then you'd think it'd be over, right? Happy ending,
No,
we're done.
This is the
Nope.
most Japanese part.
the angry neighbor's back and he's still so like the
Still
definition
angry.
of insanity is trying the same thing and expecting a different result. This guy is insane. He thinks he can fake being his neighbor and get the daimo's favor, right, and earn his all the same things, gold and riches and whatever. And so he pretends to be his neighbor. He pretends to be Hanasaka Jiji, and the daimo's like, "You don't look like the guy, but okay, fine." So he's like, "All right, show me what you can do." Oh, and I forgot, the neighbor stole some of the ash back from the friendly neighbor and from Hanasaka Jiji, and he tries to make the trees go alive again, and it backfires. It totally fails.
And the ash all goes into his face.
Goes into the daimo's face and into his face, and it's burning their eyes. And the daimo's pissed, and he hates the guy. And he's like, "You're a fake, and we're gonna lock you up, throw you in jail." And the end of the story is like just that this guy lives in prison forever for being an imposter, and that's the imprisonment that the wicked old man had to deal with. And the good old man, however, Hanasaka Jiji, with his treasure of gold coins that his dog found for him, became rich and prosperous in his old age. Happy life, beloved and respected by all. So that's what 4 of the songs in this album
I
are
know.
about.
I wish just like the whole record was about this. And that's like the fact that this comes like almost halfway through the record.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
like a
crazy.
halfway
Start
concept
with it.
record.
Just like make it your whole concept.
Yeah, honestly. And the part that bothers me is, or that I just like don't understand, is why is part 4 the first track that is a part of this story of the 4 parts? Part 4 is the first track.
It was like in my notes, TJ, do you know why it starts with 4?
No,
and 1, 2, 3?
I don't. I'm so confused.
It feels like that like super artsy decision of like it feels like
So Christopher Nolan,
like
Yeah,
or like a
until
like a
the end,
Tarantino
at the
move
beginning.
of like let's start at the end and then we'll go back to the beginning.
We'll rewind. Yeah, because it's very strange tonally. It's like I don't
It is.
understand.
Okay, so let's listen to track number 6, Hanasaka Jiji, for A Great Wind, More Ash.
But now you understand the subtitle. A great
Yeah.
wind, more ash. How about those drums?
So
the
good.
drums.
Such a good intro. This is my favorite song on the record.
Oh, cool.
This is my favorite too.
Yeah, it's so good.
And you want to know something?
what?
This is the most streamed song on the record. so-
Really?
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Interesting.
And then the second most streamed
like that.
one was the previous one, the with face covered, the
Hmm.
Dacoy House or whatever. which I'm like, those were two of my
No, wait,
favorites.
hey,
and
I
therefore
need
I'm
you
the
to
most
try that
basic.
again because I had to say the title. So I need everyone
I honestly
to
was
fail
not even
at this
listening
title.
when you said it, so I don't even know how to say it. But we're on the next song. That's old
Okay.
hat.
This song is so good.
Yeah, it is very
It's
good.
so good.
And then when they do get into a groove, his emo voice is like perfect for it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
tell this is like their emo leanings coming out.
But this is the most like, this made me want to listen to Architecture in Helsinki.
Totally. Yeah.
It's
yes.
very much like In Case We Die. Like,
Yes.
it's that, even though it's really long, it's the first time on the record where I feel like the length has a point.
Mm.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? All
Even
the
when it
different
changes time
parts.
signatures.
Yeah, it feels like it
Okay.
has a point because they're trying to like tell this specific story.
Right.
It felt like they
Out
were
of
just
order.
kind of fucking
Out
off
of
in the
order.
beginning. And then they get to this point and they're like, okay, we have something we want to say.
So you're here for it because there's like a little concept purpose.
Yeah.
That makes
This
sense.
one has sweet, sweet bass, but also, oh my God, guys, for the love of God, chill out on the glockenspiel.
I
well,
cannot.
and what's crazy is like that line is
And they
happening in the
will not.
piano too. So they
Right,
could have
yeah,
just
yeah.
left it to piano.
They
And it's
fucking
filling up the
love
same
glockenspiel.
Like
They
space.
love it so much.
They really do.
Anathallo loves Glocken. Like, find you a man that looks at you the way that Anathallo looks at a glockenspiel.
Anathallo plays a glockenspiel.
Oh man. That's so
This song's
good.
really fun. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, no, I like this one a lot.
I'm already so tired. We're not even halfway through this record. Oh.
I do want to say, before I knew about the Japanese story or whatever, if you have the words ash, urn, and wind in your song, I'm automatically going to think of The Big Lebowski, and that is also
Hey,
something that
that's
I enjoy.
just your
so-
opinion, dude.
That's like your opinion, man. Yeah, no. So that was fun, but
That's
maybe
great.
the Coen Brothers were kind of riffing on the Hanasaka Gigi tale for that scene. You know,
Maybe so.
they probably. It
possible.
wouldn't surprise me if they were.
Little literary reference.
They probably do. They probably do.
Probably.
But no, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, it's really great.
Overall, very fun.
The way
Yeah,
it grows in this
very
second
good.
half too is really cool.
I'm
Like,
here
comes
for it.
back.
I'm here for all of it. This one
Yeah,
got
it's fun.
2 piccolos from
Two
me.
piccolos
Oh,
from
very
Kylan.
2 piccolos.
Very nice.
All right, guys, let's move on to track number 7. Hanasaka Gigi, parentheses 1, The Angry Neighbor. Yeah, it is fun having all this context.
Yeah.
It is. I want to say though, I think I know why they have an angry neighbor. Is because they were just at their house recording themselves laughing like this. Yeah, I would be an angry neighbor too. If like, no, guys, that wasn't the right laugh to take. Do it again. And there, I was like, bro, I get it. I'd be mad too.
That's so great.
My favorite part of this is when he says slugs and bugs and slugs and bugs.
And blood.
I wrote
Yeah.
that too.
Because he sounds so, like he sings it so sincerely.
Yes,
And it's such a silly line.
it is. And that dichotomy is really wonderful.
I wrote, so thankful for a 3-minute song.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, this gets half a trombone from me.
Half a trombone.
That's great.
Yeah, overall, I think I enjoyed parts of the song. I'm not as crazy, and especially coming off of like the previous 2 songs, which I did like a lot. I'm not as crazy about this one, but it's fine for the most part.
I kind of wish they had just kept the Hanasaka Gigi stuff like its own thing.
Like an EP
like
or something.
yeah, like I feel like it loses its impact when it's put in the record in this way.
Right.
It because they also like split it up a little
Right.
bit, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think it would have done really well as an E EP.
Yeah, it is just interesting how they split it up and the choices to split it up and like have they don't even just do like 4, 1, 2, 3 all in a row. They have other songs peppered in
Interspersed,
between
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
it is kind of
interesting.
strange. And I don't know if it is kind of that heady, like, we'll tell the end of the story and then the beginning. But I would really love to talk to them about that. Like, I am like genuinely curious as to why they ordered it the way they did, and whether they thought maybe thematically was more impactful that way. Because the third one is the man who made Dead Trees Bloom. So like that's the title, that's his name, like the Hanasaka
Right.
Jiji. And so maybe they felt like that was the core of the story. Like
Maybe they like ended it on a happy note, you know?
right. They're going to like his identity as
Yeah.
as the final thing. We'll get there. Yeah, but hey,
Man,
can we just talk about the mix though? Like Matt Goldman showing up, y'all.
Matt
Right.
Goldman.
Come on.
Bro. Matt Goldman.
Like the drums,
Let's talk
the
more about Matt Goldman on this episode,
piano,
guys.
the guitars, like
Yeah.
everything. Nothing is too crowded. Like to have this kind of chamber folk, like massive, like instrumental layering
Well,
happening.
okay,
Song
so
in,
this
in and
all
song out
goes
like,
back to what I talked about on our Sufjan Christmas episode. I feel like every Sufjan record is like the score for an indie movie
right.
that I haven't seen.
Yep.
And that's exactly what this feels like.
That's this. Yep. Totally. And it's about
And
Hanasaka Jiji.
And it kind of makes me mad that like I haven't seen this movie.
It needs to exist.
Yeah, it should be one. It should be.
Totally.
Guys, I was kind of joking about talking more about Matt Goldman, but can we for just a second talk about Matt Goldman?
Because always.
Obviously he's known for like producing the Find the Great Line and Lost in the Sound of Separation and every D Chariot record that's ever existed and 68. So obviously he knows like he works with Josh Scogin. Like dude knows how to do crazy, heavy, chaotic stuff.
Do you
But
think he
then-
had a good time making this record?
I think so.
Maybe he's like, it's chill, you know? Like, he's like, I just recorded the fiance for the Chariot. This is a nice break. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it also offered like a lot of different challenges because the Chariot didn't have flugelhorn, you know, so he got to like kind of stretch his mixing muscles a little bit that he
this honestly would have probably happened right after or one or two records after Son I Loved You,
yeah, right.
timeline wise.
Yeah.
So this is right around that time.
Dude, that's crazy to think
That
about.
is crazy.
And so cool.
But,
It
like,
makes me impressed
yeah.
with him even more.
Yeah, but he did like the first, I think, 3 Copeland records,
Yeah.
and like he's just so, and he does it all. Like this is could not be more different than
Yeah,
any Josh Scogin record, but
Right.
like he does them both super well.
perfectly.
So,
For what they need.
Man.
Yeah.
way to be Matt Goldman.
Delivering the goods, man.
Always is.
Serving it up.
Sweet. Well, let's move on to track number 8, Inu, parentheses, Howling.
Okay, my headcanon for this song is that it's the neighbor wallowing in his misery after he was imprisoned for trying to
Really?
be the
Because
fake Hanasaka Jiji.
that's so interesting because my headcanon is it's the dog.
Yeah, the dog
because
just died.
because the big part of the story for me is the dog. Because the
Hmm.
dog is just a regular dog.
Okay,
and
you
then
sold me.
all of these expectations were
I'm
set
throwing
up.
mine out.
All these
Yours is better.
expectations were thrown to the dog of like
Oh,
when
it's
this
so
neighbor
true.
came and like killed him
Yeah.
because he didn't live up to these expectations.
Yeah.
And then he is
He was
just
the
like,
sacrifice.
dude, I'm just a fucking dog. Like, I
But-
just found this stuff.
But because that dog ruled, he like gave and gave and gave and gave after
Yeah,
death.
it's almost like there could be like a Jesus comparison
Mm-hmm.
of like
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like a
I'm sure they tied in there. Yeah.
Christ metaphor in there.
that's so good because my only note for this was just okay. So I like this conversation a lot more than my notes initially let me.
Yeah, because if you think about it, there's 3 movements. There's like the dog finding the gold and then dying, right? And that's like the crucifixion, and then
Right.
the 3
Well,
days.
because I feel
it's
like lyrically
the mortar.
a lot of the
the trees.
Hanasaka Jiji stuff is written from the perspective of the dog.
Right. or at
Like, I
least
feel like
like
that's kinda
with
what they're
it
focusing
as
on.
a central character. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's like the like Hanasaki Gigi is the obvious protagonist, but the real protagonist underneath was the dog. Much like Guillermo del Toro talked about the cricket being the true protagonist and
Yeah.
not Pinocchio.
Dude, this album makes so much sense. Like for you, TJ. Like for everything that I know. And I hope that for listeners of this show.
Oh gosh, I'm sure we've bored like 75%
No.
of people.
Oh my god. Well, fuck them. The people that are bored by this, because hey, I will tell you,
Wow, you just told our listeners that.
that's fine.
Listeners,
That's
we
fine.
value
Because
you
we
very
want
much so.
I want to find listeners that value these conversations the same way that I do. Because
I like that.
TJ, you know, I know, we all know that on a purely aesthetic level, I did not enjoy this album. But you know what I do enjoy? I enjoy this conversation about this album.
Yeah,
and I
man.
love talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's like super rad.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. CJN listeners, take a drink. The beauty of this podcast is that we can come at these things from all of these different perspectives and have really engaging, interesting conversation.
100%. And it recontextualizes the album, even if you don't walk away thinking
Exactly.
sonically that's my favorite. Like, hopefully you've got a different sort of like understanding or experience with it on some level.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, like it helps me connect to you more, like as a person.
Right.
Like I feel like I know you a little bit better from having listened to this record.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. And all my chamber folk weirdness. And meanwhile, Josh is getting acquainted with the idea of his bed. He's yawned like 3 times in the last 30 seconds.
No, he's yawned like 8 times.
I know.
He's ready for bed.
Sorry, guys.
This is a very long record, and we are going very late. So, okay, let's move on to track number 9, Hanasaki Gigi, 2, Floating World.
The smoke rose, come make
Oh wait,
but it's a subtitle.
It is. Yeah. It's not like
Inu.
Oh yeah.
Parentheses howling got no extra instruments.
No instruments.
Ooh.
Hana. Oh yeah. This one. No. Okay. I do have notes for this one. I don't like his voice on this one.
What do you think it is about it?
It's that too like head voice kind of thing. I also don't love, and this is a purely personal aesthetic thing. This song goes into like a Louisiana, New Orleans kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't
And
thought
I
about
feel
it
like
that way.
every band that has white people that play horns has like feels like they have to do like a New Orleans pastiche at some point. But I will say what gives them the benefit over a lot of other bands is they utilize the theremin quite a bit.
That's true.
Classic New Orleans styling, you know?
Yeah.
Theremin.
It's that specific kind of like trumpet sound, like
Yeah.
with the mute
With the
in the
mute.
trumpet.
Yeah. Wavering the mute thing. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way.
I don't love it, but I get it. I get why it's like within a certain type of like intellectual like music consumption. Like I understand its importance. But
Yeah.
it verges right on the line of like cliche for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I was so wrapped up in it being like the Hanasaki Gigi like grieving his dog, like because that's what this is. Like so, and the
which
that
makes
weird
sense with
drunken
like
horn
the,
thing is like he's like deep in grief and kind of wailing and like it's messy, So I like wasn't even thinking about it in terms of like what does this sound like genre wise or like what are they aping. It was more just like, does this emote effectively? or whatever.
Well,
but
the
now that
whole,
you say
like-
it, I'm
like,
like, yeah. Can't
Mourning
deny
thing
it.
is like the whole like New Orleans funeral kind of
Right.
thing. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like death and resurrection and stuff like involved in that. So it
Right.
makes sense as like
That they would evoke
someone from the United States that is like trying to like find what is the quickest cultural touchstone I can find with these instruments to signify like mourning and death with like a possibility of resurrection and things like that,
Right.
which is a big part of the story with like the dog coming back in dreams
Right.
and visions. New Orleans, voodoo, like all of that stuff like makes the most sense. Like intellectually, I fucking love this. Like I want to watch this movie.
that. Right.
I
right.
don't want to listen to this record, but I want to watch this movie.
That's funny. It's almost like I had the movie playing in my head, and that was enough when I was listening. And now
Yeah.
that you're saying it,
Makes
I'm like, me
sense.
too. I wish this movie really existed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Guys, this is my least favorite song on the record.
Really?
I do not like
Oh,
it.
wow.
That makes
I
sense,
do
Josh.
not like this at all.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you don't
This
like
was a rough
circus
one.
stuff. So, like, New Orleans funeral stuff is like very closely
Miss me
adjacent
on
It's circus
that.
to like
adjacent.
circus stuff.
It's circus
yeah, I
adjacent
get
for
it.
sure.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a bummer. It was a bummer.
Well, let's move on to track number 10, The Bruised Reed.
Are you a bruised reed, smoldering flax? Are you a broken branch? Oh, do you love?
Those piano sounds are really nice.
Which is
They
wild
are.
because, okay, I weirdly loved Hanasaka GG2. This is my least favorite song on the record.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I wrote no notes except for it got half a melodica.
Half a melodica from Kylan. I mean, it is the longest song. So
And it's the most boring.
Wow, I have a lot of notes on this song. Actually.
Okay, well, I'm going to shut the fuck up and let you
go,
talk.
Josh. Go.
All right. They have that pause in the horns at 43 seconds,
Mhm.
which I thought was weird. I first thought my Spotify was like buffering, and I was like, and then, I was like,
Yeah,
wait, what? And
because then
I
it comes back
rewound
in.
it again, and then it comes. I was like, oh, that was intentional. I wrote the most lyric notes on this song. They have the one stanza, and they're like, I think comparing and contrasting, like referencing Satan and Jesus, like Lucifer and Jesus, where they have
Mhm.
one will sift his wheat, which is what Jesus says to Satan has wanted to sift you like wheat, Peter.
Mhm.
And then it says one will come with robes, which I'm like, Jesus question mark? And then it says one will slice your ankle, which obviously another reference to Lucifer,
Mm.
Satan. And then it says love, 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 which I'm like, maybe Jesus? I don't know. I kind of see them as like, this is Satan, this is Jesus, this is Satan, or this is like a Jesus figure, I
Right.
think. Because obviously those are two direct references to Satan, Lucifer in the Bible.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming the foil of that would be Jesus.
Right.
I the first part of the song I'm not crazy about, but then like 3:30 on, I do enjoy, and specifically, I think it's the part at 5 minutes and 22 seconds. There's like this guitar part comes in here, and I think that's my favorite moment on the entire record.
Oh, nice.
But
yeah.
then again, it's only for like 10 seconds, and then they change it up.
Yeah, you
Which
want
I
it
think
to
is a
be
real.
They don't like groove on anything. And every
Yeah.
time they
Which-
come up with a cool new idea, then they just move on.
Bringing it back to Matt Goldman, this is a real The Chariot move, because The Chariot does this on a lot of songs where they finally settle into a groove. I'm like, yes, I like this, and then they just change it immediately. I'm like, guys, go back to that part.
What
like
you
I
had
like
was
that.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So other than it changing and going away so quickly, I'm like, that might be my favorite moment on the record musically. It's so good,
Mm.
and they use sleigh bells in a non-Christmas song, so props.
Yeah, respect for that, for sure. Yeah, I like your Jesus and Lucifer sort of dichotomy thing, because I do feel like it works with our idea of like tying the dog to like a Christ metaphor, because again, this song to me the intro lines of "Are you a bruised reed, a smoldering flax, or are you a broken branch?" ties back to the imagery of like the withered and dying trees, right? And then kind of this sort of paradoxical or dichotomous relationship between like the angry neighbor and Hanasaka Gigi, like the goodness and sort of like selfishness thing. And then at the end, it's like, again, I think like a scripture reference, when I speak, I cough them out, gather them up in my arms and swallow them back down. And it's like if they're lukewarm, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. Again, it's this very surreal lyricism. Like,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
totally lock into it and be like, this is definitely what it's about.
Yeah, but it gives you
Which I
ideas
like.
of like maybe they're kind of lyrically there wasn't a lot on this record that I was like, I know what this guy's talking about or what he's kind of inferring. But on this one, it was cool to be like, oh, I think at least that idea is semi-present enough for me to latch onto it.
Right.
So I like that.
Also, this little gang vocal, like da 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 da, is it feels very like Sufjan, like early Sufjan, kind of scrappy.
This song was so long, guys. It was so long and so late in the record. I'm just like, okay.
I can tell you're trying though, bud. I appreciate
I'm
that.
trying.
But
I'm trying so hard. Hey, I
this
have been
guitar part
engaging
that
with this
comes in
record
here though. It's coming in like my favorite part of the whole record. It's so good, but then it's gone so quickly. And then the way this guitar part comes in here, like right here.
I know. That's the thing is like all of these parts individually are so good. But you could take
So
each
pretty.
of these parts and develop them out into songs that are just as long.
Like if they'd taken each part and written a song based on it, or like one or two,
Yes, dude.
they could have
you
like
honestly
40
make
albums.
like an EP out of each of these each of these songs. Just expand them out. And it would be so good. I would be
Yeah.
here for it.
That's true. You're not wrong.
All right. Well, let's move on to track number 11. Yuki Yuki Yuki.
Bless you.
Fun fact, this song was featured in a Vicks commercial in
No.
2007.
No.
What?
Yeah.
That's not real.
No, for real. And I'm honestly
crazy.
surprised that this song was not in more trailers for mid 2000s independent dramedies.
Yes, that
because
makes a lot of
that's
sense to
the
me.
whole vibe of this song.
Yeah.
Every movie by Fox Searchlight, like post Garden State,
I was gonna say
should have just used this song in their trailers because that's the
100%.
whole vibe.
A Vicks commercial.
I was gonna say Zach Braff
Vicks
is
commercial.
in all of them, right? Like
Yeah, for sure.
that little thing piano.
This,
Is it
especially
that
that,
part? Is this
little
part?
like
Yeah.
Baroque piano.
Da, 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 da.
That's my only note on this song.
It's a good
It
note.
got-
I said
But hey, you know what? It got 1.5 shaker gourds.
Very nice. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
I said this is nice. I don't have any other notes.
Yeah, and honestly, guys, even for me, that was a lot of this listening experience, and that's part of why I like this album, and part of why I like a lot of that music, as I explained earlier. Like,
Right.
sometimes I just let it wash over me, and I don't even have like analysis or notes to like
Yeah.
get
And
into,
you don't have to.
and I'm like, it still bops for me. And,
No, I get it.
but I also really appreciate that this track was 1 minute and 14 seconds.
Me too. Me too.
Same.
Me too. Okay, let's move on to track number 12. Hanasaka Gigi, The End. Number 3, The Man Who Made Dead Trees Blossom.
To silence when something fell and I saw a smear of red.
More sleigh bells.
No, and that piano is so pretty.
It really is.
I wish they would just put the 4 Hanasaka Gigi tracks together. Just make an EP. Make like a 40-minute album of just the Hanasaka Gigi stuff. I would be
Yeah.
so here for it. Like the way that like Thrice did the Alchemy Index. I get it. Like 2006, especially if you're like a weird chamber folk group, and especially like Sufjan Stevens has like blown up. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you're trying to find where you fit into this like cultural space.
Right.
I understand why they made the record this way. I don't love listening to it now, but like from a musician standpoint and from like a storyteller standpoint, I get why they made the decisions that they made.
Right. Yeah, especially like you said in 2006 in that kind of genre sphere.
Well, I even get the idea of like I feel like the Bruce Reed can like if they would have structured it to where it was like here's a Hana Sakajichi song and then here's another song that's kind of like developing an idea from within that story, like here's how we want to contribute to kind of the narrative in a way, and like each of the original like the Hana Sakajichi songs had an accompanying like original song with it as like this is us diving into an idea from this story, this part of the story. Like that would make sense to me, which that's how I see the Bruce Reed as like maybe a continuation of the Floating World and like Cuckoo Spitting Blood maybe as part of a continuation of this one.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting how they structured it. Like, we're going to wait till we get to track like 6 to start this story and then maybe have our own spins on some ideas present.
And also I get from like the band perspective of like, this is our shot. Like, this is where we get what we do out to the world. So let's get every idea out.
Right.
And I feel like
there's a desperation in that first full record, right? Like,
yeah. You want to get every single idea out.
Right.
This is not their first record, though.
Well,
it's
no,
not the first...
they released 3 EPs independently. This was their first on a label.
Oh,
yeah, but
they have Luminescence and the Atlas Position and Sparrows.
Yeah. So they had done 3 independent EPs, and this was the first time
like
they like
EPs that are so long though that they're like
money.
length EPs though. So I feel like I'd count
they're Anathallo EPs.
Yeah, but you know, I get that. Like if I had been just like doing singles or EPs, and someone was like, "Hey, here's $15,000 to make a record." I know that's like a very like low number, but if someone told me that and I was like, okay, this is like my chance to like show everything that I can do.
And if you were them, you'd
like
put glockenspiel on every song, right?
So much goddamn glockenspiel. I had to change on all my ratings. I realized I had like 4 songs that were just like half a glockenspiel. I was like, it was too much glockenspiel.
Even your rating system had too much.
Yeah. This song for me got 1 kalimba.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I do like other than the sleigh bells, my only other note is I do like the callback to in the lyrics. In this song, they say, "Wash the heel of man and lick the wound," which is a callback to in the Bruce Reed versus "One will slice your ankle." So I do like that as a lyrical callback.
Yeah,
it is cool.
And like the
callback / follow through,
and like it's kind of a dog reference too, like licking wounds is like a dog, thing. And also one line in this song that I really liked was the land was dry as dead. Like that's not. Good. It's like we could have a whole Grammar Jams Now thing about it, but like I don't want to because it's perfect. You know?
It feels like the whole thing of like, TJ, I know that you're just as big of a Murakami fan as I am.
Yes.
And it feels like that kind of thing. So like basically what he does when he writes, he'll like write in Japanese and then he'll translate it to English and then translate it back.
Yep. Yeah, it's
and
true.
It feels like yeah, it feels like that sort of process is what happened here lyrically.
I think so.
Okay, guys, we have 2 more tracks and we are going very late. I know we're very tired. Let's move on to track number 13, Cuckoo Spitting Blood.
When I fell down in the corner of the field, good to say waking with a
What an
hundred.
intense song title.
I
It
know.
really is.
I thought this song is really cool, but maybe because it's shorter than 4 minutes. Hey, I have a lyric
That's
note.
fair.
Some demon in
Oh?
me crawled out and ran away is super rad. Maybe
Yeah.
my favorite lyric on the record.
Yeah, it is great. I was just gonna say I'm changing my theory from before. I think this is the song from the Angry Neighbors prison cell.
Mm,
And
yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
little bit of like a redemption story, sort of.
Oh, interesting. Because I like the line where they say "throw your name in the well," but I'm like, is that like a metaphor for like throw yourself in the well kind of thing to the angry neighbor? I don't know,
Maybe.
but I do like that as like
He's talking to himself.
and I do like that as like an expression of like your name representing like you and your legacy, like you throwing your name into this or you doing this with your name because
Mm-hmm.
of all that you are is also wrapped up into that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So that had me thinking. But
Yeah, I like that.
I gave this 1.5 Rhodes pianos.
Nice.
I think we're gonna have a full band after
We
this.
are.
And Kylan's gonna that's gonna
You
be
might
the
that
scoring for this
you guys have
record.
kind of finally figured out the theme I was going for with
Mhm,
my rating
mhm.
system.
Yep. We put it
Yeah.
together.
Now after like the Hanasaki Gigi kind of like wraps up, then I'm like, okay, I feel like the record should be over. Like
Right.
Yeah.
like
It's like me with Love Drug and Pretend You're Alive. Like after those
Yeah.
9 tracks, you're like, okay, why are we still doing this?
I do really like the vocal performance from him on this song. I feel like they finally chilled out compositionally and instrumentally a little bit enough to give him some space.
It
to,
is
like-
interesting because I feel like his vocal performance like starts at a certain point, like this very like Sufjan
Mm-hmm.
style, and then it morphs into something else, and then it kind of circles back into it, and it's like starting to get back to that point
Yeah, it's very
to make this
cyclical.
whole record feel like very like cyclical. Like
Mhm.
you could just listen to it again and again and again and again
Yes.
to get different things every time.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, let's move on to the last track. Let's do it. Here we go, guys. Track number 14, Casa no Hone, The Umbrella's Bones. Those harmonies are like so good. The drums are so good.
Yeah.
And it ties back to the beginning of the record. This is what I'm talking about. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like you could start the record over after this and it
Mhm.
would tie exactly back into the end of it.
Agreed.
It's like a very like Aurora Boros, like snake
Mhm.
eating its own tail. You could just like
Yes.
circle and circle and circle and circle.
Yeah, never ending, infinite loop. Also, I wanted to mention this track. The ideas in this track and the how did you say it? Duckquaize?
Really? You're gonna make me say it again?
Duckquaize? Well, because I think you were right. Duckoise.
Dokoise.
Duckoise.
Dokoise.
So this
Oh,
track and
that's right.
Duckoise are from a collection of Japanese peasant songs.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I forgot to talk about that. Yeah. Those 2 songs are like the lyrics are taken from traditional Japanese poems.
Right.
I know. This like made me want to like learn Japanese because
Mhm.
it seems so fun.
No, I thought this was a good way to end the record.
Yeah. It's kind of mellow, but kind of catchy.
Yeah. Ends up beat.
Okay,
It's like a
you
little
guys want to
lullaby.
know my
What was
rating
your rating on
system
this?
Yeah.
for this song?
Let's hear it.
Okay. This song was good. It got 1 too many people on stage. Which is how we end the whole thing.
So good.
It's
Very
such a
nice.
good ending. It's so
Mhm.
good. And unfortunately, there are too many half glockenspiels and half bass drums and half trombones. There's 1 too many people on stage. But I like that song a lot. It
Mhm.
was fun. It was like it feels like a good like sing along song.
Yeah. I like the translation. The ribs of the umbrella have fallen apart. The paper is also torn, but with bamboo tied together, do not throw it away. Though I also am torn, don't desert me.
Yeah,
That's
I like that
nice.
too. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right,
Really
guys,
sweet.
we did it. We listened through
We did it.
Anathallo's Floating World.
Man, thank
And
y'all for
it
going
comes
on that
down-
journey
I'm-
with me.
Yeah,
I appreciate
you know
you.
what? Like, I'm sorry that it has to come down to such a reductive
It
rating
doesn't have
system
to.
as
I
flops or
think
pops.
we could just pick which one of us is Hanasaka Gigi, which one of us is the angry neighbor, and which one of us is the dime. The what? The dime.
The
what's
Daimo?
his
Daimo?
name? The
No, I
Daimo.
think somebody
which
should
one-
be the dog.
Oh, brutal.
The spirit of the dog that lives
I'll
on.
be the
spirit of the dog, okay.
sacrificial dog of this episode. No, I don't know. I feel like I dislike this the most, so I should maybe be the neighbor. But that doesn't feel like, that doesn't tie within the whole narrative, because I don't want to be. I want to live on and make the cherry blossoms like bloom beautifully.
Oh,
Okay, I'm just gonna
Tell
say
me,
it.
Kylan. Tell me.
I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off. TJ, I did not enjoy listening to this record.
you enjoyed talking about listening to this record.
That's what I was about to say, man. I so appreciate you bringing this record to us. I enjoyed talking about it like a lot. And like, honestly, I don't know. I always feel so weird when, specifically when it's like a wish list record, and I get kind of how you felt about the whole like Jets to Brazil record, of like, there are things about this that I really enjoy.
Right.
And I really enjoy like learning a lot more about my friend through this experience. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like, I'm not upset that, like, I'm sorry, Josh, your wish list record, Fireproof, made me actually angry.
Yeah, you had no reservations about that one. But
I
you were
know.
like,
I
TJ, I just don't. I want.
Yeah,
I
you're
know
so
this
like
record's important to
apologetic
him.
about your opinion
Yeah.
right now. But I get it and I appreciate it.
But
It's really sweet.
I don't know.
I appreciate it.
We've come a long way in this podcast since
true.
then
It's
as
true.
well. You know what I mean? And
We've all become fireproof in a way.
we have all become a little fireproof. No, I appreciate this record. I appreciate what they were trying to do. I appreciate your love for this record. It makes me understand you more as a musician. That being said, I do not like this record like at all. I will not listen to it because my big criteria is like, will I find myself listening to this record or the majority of this record at some point within the next year? No.
Yep. I get
But
it.
I'm not mad that I had the experience of listening to this record, of finding it,
Good.
and having conversations, because CJN listeners, take a drink. The beauty of this podcast is
two in one episode. All right.
is that we get to have these different opinions and we get to come to music from different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to appreciate different things. And it really did sort of solidify for me that perspective of, I look to music for comfort. And, this is obviously being incredibly reductive, but you like that challenge a little bit more, or
And the awe.
just, yes, the awe. And I like talking to you about it,
Yeah, man. Me too.
but
I like it too.
it is very much a flop for me.
And it is very much a bop for me. And so is this conversation. Though you flopped it. I couldn't
Well,
care
hell
less.
yeah.
Because
Hell yeah.
you're bringing
I'll
your
take
honest
it.
opinion and we're having really good conversation about it. And we're watching Josh yawn as he
I know. It is
Um,
so late. It is so
I'm
late.
sorry.
All right.
losing hours of
I
sleep.
don't
but-
want to keep yawning. But
I know.
I'm
All
just
right.
like-
Well,
But I
let's
wanna
wrap it
say-
up so Josh can go to bed because he has to work in the morning.
Yeah, but I want to say thanks to both of y'all for indulging this wishlist album with me and
Dude.
going on the chamber folk journey of the spirit of the dog and the Hanasaka
Um,
Gigi spirit of
Hey,
friendship that we all found along the way.
you guys both listen to Paper Roots, Are We All Forgotten? And then talked about it while I had COVID and no one listened to the episode. So that is the sign of true friendship. So like I'm here for the long haul.
We did it.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
We're here for
Okay.
it.
Putting
Josh,
the long in the long haul for this record.
Yep.
what do you think?
I'm basically going to side with Kylan on this. That while I wasn't crazy about the record, I very much enjoyed getting to listen to it at least once and talk about it. And like I'd never heard about this Japanese folklore tale before or anything like that, so I enjoyed a lot of learning about what this record brought us and the conversation that we had overall. And see, the thing is with this, what I wanted to talk about with the linear song structures is like, I don't know, sometimes when we go into a record and I'm like, oh, I gotta come up with like cool talking points about like stuff, and there's records that we've covered that I've liked a lot that have been hard to talk about,
Mm.
and there's records like this that I'm like, I'm not crazy about this, but it's very hard to talk about it because like the first couple times I was listening to it, because every song is linear and it's like cleaning up in the kitchen while I had my headphones in. I was like, I didn't know when one song ended and the next song
Yes,
began.
right. To
know,
Kylan's point
like-
earlier, it's very cyclical.
Yeah. Yes. Which is a cool artistic concept and like way to make your album, but it's like it was stressful for me because I'm like, wait, which song was this? Like, I got to try to write notes about this, and like, so I feel like it is definitely an album that is better just enjoyed and listened to
Right.
instead of trying to like critically assess. But maybe after you've been exposed to it and you like learn the ins and outs of it from just enjoying it, you can come at it a little bit more critically because you're familiar with like, oh, after this part comes on,
Right.
and then like they're doing this lyrically, and so it's just like there's so much happening, and it's changing all the time that it was hard to like assess critically in like the span of like a week and be like, I feel like I'm confident enough to
Yeah,
talk about
I
this
get it.
record critically on a podcast where people listen to us. So that was a little tough, but I did have moments of this record I really liked, and I did like those two songs specifically in the middle, and so yeah, it was an enjoyable experience overall about this record and stuff like that. But yeah, hard to talk about critically
It is.
when I'm or at least like diving into it for the first time. It was a lot, but so I will flop it, but I will bop this conversation.
The convo's a bop. Well, not to try to change y'all's mind in any way, but to maybe give you a glimmer of hope, I will say that I think Anathallo's follow-up album, Canopy Glow, married the best elements of their weird linear chamber folk music with some good old groovy pop structure
I will
songwriting.
say that Pitchfork agrees with you.
Well, I don't really care what
For
Pitchfork
better or
thinks,
for worse.
but that's great to know. But I think y'all would enjoy Canopy Glow if we ever dug into that one at some point down the road.
Yeah,
we
think
should
we
take
will
a
at some
major Anathallo break to give y'all a chance to reset. But I do think they really learned from this experience. Like the process of making this album where they got to like throw everything at the wall, like you said, Kylan, where they had a budget and they had this
felt
one
like
chance.
There was
you know?
definitely like a first record syndrome.
Yes.
A little bit with this, but it's like a first record of people that are huge like Philip Glass fans.
Yeah, and like
Ends up
massively
being,
talented
like,
musicians.
A lot more exhausting for the average listener.
Totally. So I think they like pared things down in just the right way and married it to some better like kind of verse chorus stuff on Canopy Glow. So just to tease that for y'all and for the listeners if we get there at some point. But all that to say, I really appreciate y'all floating in this world with me.
Oh,
It's a floating world, man. Okay, so from all of us at Church Jams Now, we appreciate you going on this journey with us and spreading our ashes among the cherry blossoms. May all your favorite bands stay together and peace out, mon frères.
Mon.